Dashtile Dr. Lobsang Sangila. My name is Tenzin Quinsel, and I had a question for you. For some context, I've become a really passionate Tibetan freedom fighter in these past couple years as a high schooler, and I've participated in and I'm part of many activism groups such as Students for Free Tibet. And in the activism space that I'm in, I've realized two really big challenges that Tibetan freedom fighters face, and I just wanted to hear what you think about my perspective. The Tibetan movement globally is powered by grassroots networks and communities uniting across the world to attend protests, organize events, and spread awareness amongst people who aren't Tibetan. And I've noticed that movements such as the Palestine movement that you mentioned before, they are very effective in organizing and planning, as you mentioned, and especially the fact that grassroots movements are really dependent on the general public's perception of Tibet and, like, for example, of Palestine. And I've noticed that Tibetan activists face a problem of not being able to control the narrative of Tibet. And the second problem I've seen is among diplomatic spaces and academic spaces, people do realize the problems that China has, but because China is a global power and their power and the way they've colonized Tibet, no countries are really going to fight China per se. And because of this, I've noticed on online spaces, the main Chinese propaganda that I've seen about Tibet is that recently, because of the United States, Trump administration and everything, and because United States historically has been competitive against China, whenever people are saying oh, in China, Tibetans are losing freedom, Uyghurs are losing freedom as well, they're in concentration camps, I see people replying with, oh no, this is just propaganda. And I see specifically people saying this is CIA propaganda. America is trying to put China down, and this is just propaganda against China. And I've realized when they're saying this with hatred towards the American government. And I feel like this just downplays the Tibetan freedom as a whole. And I've noticed this a lot in online spaces, but I just wanted to see if you've noticed this at all or something about that. Yeah. Thank you.
In online space, Chinese are very active. They employ, I forgot the number, 20,000 at least active online, counter-propagandists. Literally. So they also encourage all the office workers to go online and criticize. So you should not take online, counter-narrative as representative of the general public. They disguise themselves. For example, in my social media accounts also, there are a lot of critics. I know some Chinese are hiding, and then using all that. Recently, even the His Holiness Dalalama.com, the website, was hacked by Chinese. In fact, by the Shugden group, and they put all the Shugden propaganda. So they are capable of doing that. Once His Holiness was giving a teaching, right? And in the Chinese, the Facebook and YouTube account, Chinese language, they have 10,000 criticism against His Holiness in Chinese language. So this is all orchestrated. So you should be aware of this. Now even, the Americans and the Europeans, the world is aware. There's so many trollers, right? They just do that. Now, about narrative, you're right. We must think hard and plan hard. This is a sensitive topic, okay? Recently, His Holiness made a statement about his reincarnation, right? Now, I have worked this for 7 years, from 2016 on, because I have had very close, interaction, because I have at least 100 one-on-one audience with His Holiness, right? And often I discuss about this. I know his thinking, I know his mindset, and he's a visionary, he's a strategist, right? And then I knew this day was coming. The His Holiness statement was coming at the age of 90. Now I started speaking about reincarnation. If you notice, if you go to social media, I started speaking about it 3 years ago, at least 2 years ago publicly. And look at among the criticism, Tibetans were criticizing me. Because what I was trying to do was control the narrative, right? We must be out there before others. We must say our part of the story first. so that the Chinese cannot counter it. They have overwhelming presence around the world. Do you know what the Chinese say? That in 200 countries around the world, there's not even a single country where Chinese news media, either newspaper or radio or television, do not reach. More than America. And what do we have? We have nothing. But what we can do is control the narrative. So that's what we need to, why I started speaking is create awareness among Tibetan people. What is this reincarnation? My line of argument was not about what His Holiness should decide. That's His Holiness' decision. Right? My argument was not what His Holiness should say or should not say. That's His Holiness' decision. My argument, my narrative was, whatever His Holiness says, we must be prepared and we must support him. And we must ride on that narrative. But Tibetans don't understand. Oh, they were just criticizing. Right? Thank goodness I worked on this for 3 years. And last November, I organized 2 days conference at Harvard. It takes a lot of effort, okay, to put a conference like that. You have to talk to all these scholars individually, raise funds, and Harvard to agree and have the event and put it out there on YouTube, Now, when His Holiness made a statement, I'm not trying to show off. Among the Indian media, who got invited the most as a guest? 1 or 2 people, or maybe 3, and I am one of them. Why? Because they know I can speak on this. Even CNN, you just look at, I was in BBC and, Deutsche Welle, the German TV, and, NPR radio, and then Australian radio and London radio, just internationally. And if a Tibetan can speak on this issue, we can control the narrative. To do that, they don't invite you just because you are Tibetan or you have a position. News media, what they look for is you're presentable. Someone can say things precisely. Someone can give you news. Someone can give you insights. That's what they look. Because they say you have only 4 minutes. BBC said you have only 4 minutes. Okay? In fact, if you check, it's only 3 minutes and 36 seconds. And you have to say everything. The questions and the answer. Right? It's not that easy. So sometimes they say 4 minutes, 6 minute segments, 8 minute segments, 12 minutes. If you have 20 minute segments, no problem. So to control the narrative, you must study your issue thoroughly. And if you know your issue thoroughly, whatever questions they put you, in this news media, they don't give you questions ahead of time. They just ask you right then and there. In fact, I was put off because if you listen to this London radio, okay, I thought she's going to ask me about reincarnation and geopolitics. And she said, what is His Holiness like? I said, what? I never thought about that, And how do you see him? Something like that. It's like, what are you asking me? I thought I was gung-ho on reincarnation, geopolitics, China. It's like, tell us something about His Holiness Dalai Lama, I was like, I had to rethink then and there, but answer, I hope once that YouTube is available, I want to watch myself, how I answered that question. Because 90% was on reincarnation. Only that one was at a very personal level. So, to control the narrative, you must study well. Palestinians, they have controlled the narrative. They have put their story out there ahead of time. Now, on the one hand, yes, it's true. Now, China and CIA propaganda and all that, this is the age-old Chinese tactic and strategy. That has failed. Till 2016, everybody wanted to do business with China. They wanted to invest in China. They wanted to be friends with China. Right? They control the narrative. I saw that. It was so difficult to people listen to you. But since 2016, image of China has changed now. In Canada, you can do this research. Okay, Pew, P-E-W, okay, survey. 65% of Canadians had favorable views of China in 2015-16. Check. Now it has changed. I think it's around 20%. Now 60% has negative views of China. So now it has become easier for us to put our narrative out there. Okay. Now you work for SFT, it's very good. You should keep doing that. But you must form coalition with others. Bring along Uyghurs and Hong Kong and Mongolians and others and Taiwanese. Why I say this is because it's a fact now. They are in the news. We are not in the news. But we are the elder brother. We laid out the groundwork for them. We put our narrative out there for so long. When Uyghurs came out, I tell them, Hong Kong came out, when they say, oh, Chinese government is mistreating us, they say, exactly, they mistreated Tibetans, now they're mistreating you. Right? So by building this coalition, what happens is that you are not talking about Chinese and Tibet as an exception. Yeah, they're bad to Tibetans, otherwise Chinese are good. No. They're not only bad to us, they're bad to Uyghurs and Mongolians and Hong Kongers and Taiwanese as well. So this is a pattern, this is a system that you see. And this is the Chinese world order. Recently I gave a talk at, I'm not trying to promote my social media, okay? If you check the Liberty Conference, LibertyCon in Europe, this is the largest Liberty students organization. They have branches in 67 countries, right? They have 4,000 events a year all over the world. This is the biggest meeting, and I was the plenary speaker, and I was talking about Chinese world order. Okay, what is Chinese world order? So that's the narrative we must build. And as in Chinese world order, a foreign minister can disappear, and no one can ask question about it. And if President Xi Jinping appoints defense minister, he disappears, no one can ask question about it. And as general is appointed, disappears. Another general is appointed, disappears. No one can ask about it. That is Chinese world order. Chinese police station, there are 102 Chinese police stations in 62 countries around the world. Can you imagine, including in Toronto, there's a Chinese police station monitoring Tibetans in Chinese. And the surveillance systems are sold in 86 countries. Chinese surveillance cameras sold. This is Chinese world order, right? And elite cooptation, they buy your journalists, they buy your business people, they buy your politicians. So you must come out with this argument. You must know what Chinese world order is. You are the authority. You are a Tibetan. You can speak about Chinese world order because we have witnessed that, we have experienced that for 60 plus years now. And when you do that, in that Chinese world order, this is Tibet, this is how Tibetans are mistreated, and not just us, now they are mistreating people around the world, including you. Canadians, there is a Chinese police station in Toronto. Do you know that? You are being tracked. If you have a Timur, is it Timur app, where you buy all the Chinese cheap goods? Your phone is hacked. Chinese government is listening to you. They track you everything. Do you know that? TikTok, it's Chinese. You're giving data to everything to Chinese on a daily basis. Did you know that? So you know the TikTok of America, the CEO said, no, we have nothing to do with Chinese government. This is free and autonomous business outlet, and we are independent of Chinese. That's what the CEO and the president of TikTok said all the time to the US Congress. Now, President Trump is saying, US Congress passed a law saying either you sell TikTok or we're going to ban it. Now they decided to sell it. And President Trump announced that few Americans are going to buy it. What are they waiting for? You know what they're waiting for? They're waiting for the Chinese president to give the permission. Now, if TikTok does not belong or controlled by the Chinese government, why do you need the permission of the Chinese government or Xi Jinping? Right? So, but then if you listen to everybody, TikTok is independent. But that's why I don't have TikTok account. Many of you do. You are being hacked. You are being watched. On a daily basis, you are sending your data to the Chinese government. They know exactly your movement and they feed you information. And you listen to TikTok, you listen to Chinese government. That's how they control the narrative. So there are a lot of things to do, but very important to study. Now we must graduate ourselves from a spokesperson for Tibet to spokesperson for China to spokesperson on international affairs. Then you get more space and you can control the narrative. Okay? So carry on doing the good things. Yeah.
그래서 teni 드린 것을 롭트 넘버 쪽이 제거를 되라 대나 저기 요사 드린 것을 롭트 죽불라 그겁쟁이 바지 집어니 요새 직불나
Tashile Lusangela. So my question is, in these changing geopolitical situations around the world, especially through the last few years, as different countries have changed their foreign policy, and obviously China, as you have said, has attempted to gain prominence to number one superpower over the next few years. How can the Tibetan movement adjust and adapt in these situations and really regain its relevancy and importance in the global stage as other nations have shifted their stances towards China, and China attempts to push back and reassert its dominance? So in these situations, how can Tibetans, both here and all over the world, attempt to really improve their narrative and increase their standing on the global and diplomatic stage?
Yeah, that's a good question, big question. I did answer that. I did address that previously. But yes, this is a changing landscape. Now you must say, there is American or Western-led world order, right? Now the challenge is Chinese world order. And there's a conflict between the two. Now China is trying to divide the world into their domain and, have more alliances. Now where do we fit in? We should fit in. We should challenge Chinese world order. And we should fit in more in the Western world order. Now having said that, if you say the Western world order is the best, it's really good, then no one will listen to you. I always say this. I know Western world order has double standard, hypocrisy, double face. Sometimes they backstab you. There are all kinds of wrongs and mistakes and weaknesses in the Western world order. And we are witness to that, right? Tibetans are supported sometimes, Tibetans are not supported sometimes. But any day, this world order is better than the Chinese world order. This world order, the difference is this is a freedom-based world order, right? I can criticize America, American president, American Congress, Canadian Prime Minister, Canadian Congress. I will not go to jail tonight. But in China, if you criticize Chinese world order, Chinese President Xi Jinping, Chinese government, you go to jail. So you must contrast these two world order and reinforce to your friends. They say, hey, Chinese seems nice. No, you have no idea. Okay? First, you must put this. So Tibet in the middle. Why we choose this West-led world order? Not because it's the best, not because it's good to us. There are all kinds of hypocrisy and double standard. But this is a freedom-based world order. At least you can speak your mind. And then you must put Tibet now. For example, before we used to say, oh, Tibet is so important environmentally. Now you must change the language. You should say, Tibet is so important as far as critical minerals are concerned. You're changing the language. We have uranium, we have lithium. 75% of lithium reserve of China is in Tibet. 75% of lithium reserve. Largest copper reserve of China is in Tibet. Do you know? Zomda copper mining. Right? So we must change the language. So when you say Tibet, why Tibet is important as far as critical minerals is concerned. Now there's a huge debate going on whether America will support Ukraine or not. America said we will support Ukraine if America is given access to critical minerals of Ukraine. But we can make an argument. We have more critical minerals than Ukraine. And as far as hydropower is concerned. So instead of just saying climate change, right, you should say as resources. And then now, democracy is, again, there are more countries that are not democratic than democratic countries in the world. You know that? The more non-democratic democratic countries. Now we should put forth Tibetan government as an example, as a model in helping democratization of the whole world. As a success. Right? So that's how you should, I'm not saying change the whole thing, but change the language and tactfully put yourself out there. That's how you build alliances. And I'm trying to build alliances among all the exiled communities. Did it help? So you must understand geopolitics. You must understand China. Then you should navigate.
Thank you. Jiwa Tamai, Shunga the Lopu number 2 again. Did Jella was a Jugdom Jugi?
Hello. Sister Losong Sangela, Tishtile, and Del Pepper Pecaucho, and Digala, Tiwa, the Injila Shucho, and Della Lopu Manche, Kotogicheto, and Injila Shui. So my first question is, given that Tibet offers no direct strategy or economic benefit to most nations, and considering that Tibetans have no political powers or statehood, how can we persuade democratic countries to support the Tibetan cause and raise it in global forums, especially when China uses its influence and tactics to suppress any such discussion? And my second question is, how is cybersecurity in CTA? Kajinlana tanda cybersecurity la do tang anjugi lokle taike deja le do ninsong le do adigang la anju cybersecurity tesang application bu che do tanda AI ge technology like DeepSeek gami gi server che and tanda tarkyap shukchung bu che do ani kising anjugi thiwa do je kurba na DeepSeek na la ani phebe phedeng ko la je kurtu ani khunjugi lende takta jeimin do digi kangi shukchung bu che an jeba maung ba ya documentation in area anjugi ta secret or that phebagi jita confidential in the sama leak chegi chances yung sigire ani misuse chi sigire samgi dura kamigi so ani tanda CTA khona nala ani phebagi cyber security nala ani shuk gyawana yabudu shuen andi khande yana nang theokuni chungsu tojina
and thangbo cyber security in the law. So I just got elected, right? And then I took over in August 2011. In November of 2011, I was scheduled to visit Washington, D.C. And I received an email from a journalist of Time magazine, Hannah Beach. She said, hey, Lobsang, we have interviews scheduled, and these are the questions I want to ask, and I have sent all the questions in an attachment. And I thought, wow, Time magazine journalist wanting to interview me, you know, and she's sending me all the questions ahead of time. But then I thought, oh, it can't be that easy. And I wrote to her saying, hey, Hannah, did you send this email? Did you send all the questions? She said, no, I didn't send it. And clearly it was sent by Chinese to hack my computer. And number two, we sent a confidential memo to the Office of Tibet in Washington, D.C., saying, Ani, when I come to D.C., I want to do these things. Okay, I want to meet the senators, congressmen, if possible, Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State. They did one email. And I was attending the parliament session. When I came back, the email was put in public domain. Our email, can you imagine, it was sent from my office, Kasha, Sikyong office to Office of Tibet, no attached, nothing. I didn't send it to anybody. That email, hacked. Then we start opening, checking our computers. It was clearly they had already put mole or Trojan during this Trojan Rava. Everything that we were sending from our office was hacked. So then we hired cyber experts in the Chevre. Then we put TCRC level, computer center here, we made a major improvement. So before, each time there was a hack, when a computer shuts down, sometimes we have to shut down all the computers of the department. And it's the jail, what we managed to do was we managed to isolate one computer or the hack in a constant challenge. That because Chinese hack even the CIA's and Pentagon office some hack multi-billion-dollar company some hack but we could protect as much as possible. So that's why joking, this has become a very famous line, you know. So I told you that when you give talks like that, you must start with a story or something funny, so that everybody remembers. So last Oslo Freedom Forum, I started speaking and I said, when you send an email to Buddha, what would he say? No attachment, please. Attachment is one of the 3 cardinal sins in Buddhism. So Buddha said 2,500 years ago, no attachment, please. So whenever you receive an email with an attachment, don't open it, because Buddha said 2,500 years ago, no attachment, please. So it just went viral, Everybody's like, no attachment, please, no attachment. Can you imagine? There are like 800 people in the room, okay, from 60 plus countries. And then 90% of the people remember my speech for one line, no attachment, please. So in fact, there was a big business. Now, many people use this, no attachment, please. Buddha said, everybody using it. They quote me. They give me the credit. So, what I'm trying to say is, Buddhist knowledge is invaluable. What Buddha said is still relevant today. So you must use catchy phrase like that. How was it? So, don't open your attachment. Be careful. Even if it's from your boyfriend or girlfriend or your parents. The cyber security, but we are improving. We keep improving. Yes, how do we put this? So, for example, now we are talking about AI. AI, how you connect AI with Tibet? Do you know how to connect? What I say is, China has built 400 dams in Tibet. 400 dams for hydropower. Now they're building the biggest dam, bigger than Yangtze Dam, on the bend between Arunachal Pradesh and Tibet. India is worried. This will be the biggest. And then you should say, this is how you make an argument, how you make Tibet relevant. I said, Tibetans don't need any more energy. We have surplus of energy. We don't need any more dams. But Chinese are building dams to what? To generate power for their data centers. AI data centers. Why China is getting ahead in AI? Because they have data centers which needs energy is coming from Tibet. See, Tibet is important. So you want to defeat China's AI? Look at Tibet. Chinese, their electric vehicle, EV, is so popular, it's so cheap, sold all over the world. Why? 75% of the lithium comes from Tibet. Now, rare earth US-China trade relationship, rare earth because of rare earth, even US had to open up tariff negotiation with China. 90% of the rare earth of China comes from Inner Mongolia. So we are that valuable. China is getting ahead in AI because of our hydropower. Because of our lithium, the EV is ahead. Because of rare earth of Inner Mongolia, they are ahead in missile technology. So we are relevant. And I always say, when I go to India, I say, look at this Big Bend, they're building the biggest dam. If you listen to my interviews in Indian media, I always say, you made a mistake by calling Indo-China border. Now you're asking me and saying, why Chinese soldiers are coming to Galwan Valley and Doklam and inside Indian territory? Because you say it's India-China's border. Chinese troops will come to China's border. You invited them. If you call it Indo-Tibet border, we will speak for you. We say, you have none of your business. This is Tibet. I am Tibetan. Why are you building soldiers here? You call China's border, you're invited. Then the Indian media, they just start changing it now. They always ask me, what can we do? I said, recognize Tibetan government exile. Call it Indo-Tibet border. Don't say Tibet is part of autonomous region of China. Say Tibet was independent. So this discourse has to happen. You have to change the narrative. You must put Tibet in the context of India's benefit, South Asian benefit, global benefit. That's how you build narrative. So each time there is a major issue, you just say, how can I connect this to Tibet? If you just say, oh, human rights, freedom, we are suffering, they are torture us, that has less sympathy nowadays. So constantly, that's why I say, always study, and plan more. And then, do you know, hydropower cheswa, dams build cheswa. So I've been studying cheswa. Now, there's a direct correlation between building dams and earthquakes. Why there was earthquake in Tingri? Why there was earthquake in Yushu?
Global warming.
Not global warming. Building of dams. You build dams, what happens is that the dam river, there's a wall. And then you keep all the water. Water starts seeping through soil. Even rocks, soft rock, so it starts seeping through. Then there's a Himalayan belt, Tibet is number 4. Earthquake prone zone. There's a grade number 1, 2, 3. 4 is the highest, most dangerous. So you build 400 dams and water is seeping through the soil and it goes and creates earthquake. Tana, how I make it relevant? Okay, Tingri de Chaswa. That you do more research. Earthquake in Afghanistan, earthquake in Pakistan, earthquake in Nepal, earthquake Burma. All are connected to building dams in Tibet. Lara, Pakistan, what? It's true. That's how, then I made this presentation last year in November in Balipara Foundation, Assam. Himalayan region, experts Malaysia. That's why environment is so relevant. No more dams in Tibet. You build allies. They'll speak for you. Because if you build dams in Tibet, there will be earthquake in Nepal. Nepal, you suffer so much. Again, it's not dying of people, okay? Dying the 100 people died. Assam earthquake, 1,000 people died. That's very sad, unfortunate. But actually, the biggest damage of earthquake is the destruction of properties. Billions of dollars. You build a house. Once that's demolished, life-saving. So that's why Tibet is important. Himalaya, Afghanistan, the Pakistan, so this is how you build your narrative, make yourself relevant. So constantly, that's how you think. And then you should know, we should read our own history. How many of you have read the political history of Tibet, book by Shagapa? So not many know. Now Shagapa wrote a letter to Prime Minister of India, Nehru, those days, and in which he said, today, between India and Tibet's border, there are only 80 soldiers from Tibetan side guarding the border of Tibet. Can you imagine? If India doesn't support us now, India will pay more price than Tibetans. We lose our country. Now, how many Indian troops are there in the border of, India? 500,000. When Tibet was independent, there were only 80 soldiers. Now India has put 500,000, sometimes a million. How many billions of dollars they're spending? If Tibet was independent, they don't have to spend all the money. So this is how then India said, oh my goodness, this is a mistake. So in the latest India Today global interview, journalists asked me point blank, so did India make a mistake by recognizing Tibet as autonomous region of China? Now this Indian journalists asking this question because you've been building this narrative. And I said, absolutely. So this is how you change it. And then one example, so Doklam happened in 2017, Galwan happened in 2020 May. So the Indian Chinese troops came into and beat up Indian troops and injured 100 plus and killed 13 or so. When they asked me this question, I said, why is Chinese doing this? The Chinese are China, they're bad, they're killing. No, I said, no. Mao Zedong and Chinese leaders said in the 1950s, we must occupy Tibet, and Tibet is the palm. Then we go after 5 fingers, Ladakh and Nepal, Bhutan, Sikkim and Arunachal. Now they are coming after 5 fingers. They've been saying for 60 years, we've been saying for 60 years, you never listen to us. Now look at, Galwan is in Ladakh, Doklam is in Sikkim and Arunachal. They're coming. We told you 60 years ago. Now, you Google, China's 5-finger strategy, quote unquote, Lobsang Sengke Thungre. It was there. China and 5-finger strategy. China is 5. They're coming after 5 fingers. They're coming to all the neighbors of India. Oh, they're coming. Their expansionist empire. You change the narrative. Oh, Galwan, they are so bad. They're terrible. They beat up Indian soldiers. They killed Indian soldiers. That's bad, Lava. It's just a small story. And tomorrow you disappear. So when Galwan Valley happened, I appeared on almost 50 Indian national television, hundreds of newspapers. Why? Because you build a narrative. And then discourse in India changes. So one could do that, but you have to study and you have to constantly think. Now I'm coming with a bigger argument here at the top level. Then anyway, final question. Okay. And I'm also like typical Peba. Slowly I warm up, Then last hour just put the last 1 hour clip, okay? At this not this so send the man to you. Yep.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tenzi Ishii.
And my name is Setan Makmasling.
And we are 2 of the 9 interns at TCCC this summer. On behalf of everyone here, it is an immense honor to extend our heartfelt gratitude to former Sikyong Dr. Lobsang Sangye for joining us today. Your presence means so much to our community and especially to our youth. Your unwavering dedication to the Tibetan cause and your inspiring leadership continue to motivate the next generation to remain rooted in their identity while striving for excellence and justice in all that they do. Thank you for taking your time today to be with us and for sharing your insight and wisdom. I would also like to express our deep appreciation for the Parents Association of TCCC. Your support, care, and commitment to our youth and community does not go unnoticed. You have been instrumental in making today's event possible, and we are truly grateful for everything that you do behind the scenes.
And a special thank you to the IT committee led by Tashi Langdupla, as well as our Sunday school staff, and of course, our students. The work you do each week instills values, language, and a strong sense of identity in our children. And of course, a big thank you to all of the youth who showed up today. You're the reason we do this work. Your curiosity, your voices, and your dedication to learning about our culture, identity, and values gives us hope and purpose. Thank you once again for everyone for being here and making today's event such a meaningful one.
We would now like to have a photo session, so we invite all the youth to come just up to the front.